Hello, Las Vegas and listeners around the country. Thank you so much for joining us on Live Unleashed. I am your host, Kevin Lepine. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a lot of show to do today, actually. We're going to be skipping some of the other segments. We're actually cutting some commercial breaks, so I apologize to my sponsors for that one tonight. I promise I will make it up to you. We just wanted to kind of touch base, talk a little bit real quickly about the things we have going on over at Hypnosis Unleashed at the Hooters Casino Hotel. This week, all listeners, all you have to do is just mention the USA code at the box office, and you'll get your tickets to Hypnosis Unleashed for only $12. That's a $12 ticket instead of the standard $40, and that's even less than the half off. Come and join us this week. We're still in kind of the quiet season in between spring break and summer really hitting here in Vegas, so it's a really good chance to get out, see the shows while traffic's still light and easy. We have a lot of guests in here today. I just want to, as you know, normally in the beginning of the show, I take a few minutes to talk about an idea that you can use to really propel your life forward, or things that you can do to leave negativity behind. But today we have a lot of people here in the studio to actually share a lot of different ideas about how to do things like that, including how to really, really move forward in your dreams and your goals. And I don't want to waste a lot of time because I have this week's planned guest, who is the youngest doctor of sexology. She is also a professor at UNLV, a teacher of sexual studies, sexual health, all-around amazing woman. We have Amanda Morgan joining us, and also some surprise guests that I am so excited to have in here. We also have the Modern Gypsies. I've got Michael and Irene joining us as well. And, of course, Will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. So we're going to kind of divide this up a little bit differently. First of all, Amanda, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
So one of the, if not still the youngest doctor of sexology.
I was the youngest person to graduate with my degree at that time. There's now, I think, 2 people who have graduated since who are technically now younger, but I'm the one teaching at UNLV. So, I'm in Las Vegas, I'm for sure the youngest sexologist. Actually, very few sexologists here in Vegas. There's a lot of people who think they're sexologists.
And that was the first thing that I wanted to discuss. And in afternoon radio, it's going to be, no pun intended, a touchy subject. Mm-hmm. But what is the difference between you and somebody who thinks they are you?
Okay, so I've been going to school for an incredibly long time. I did graduate at 23 with my doctorate, but I did it the same time as my master's. So I'm 27 now, and I've been teaching at UNLV I just finished my 3rd year, which is awesome. I'm in the process of finishing grades and grading finals. This is finals week. So I have my master's in public health. So I actually went to school and I did a thesis on what sex toys are made out of. And a lot of people don't think about that. They're like, oh, these are fun. And they don't think twice about it. So I actually did the science and found out the materials they're made out of, if they're safe for your body. And there's, of course, lots of interesting issues that can go into women's health and maternal health, especially if you're pregnant. You want to think about the stuff you're putting in your body. And I also went to the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality in San Francisco while I was completing my doctorate and doing my internship at the Erotic Heritage Museum. So I worked there for 3 years, which is reopening at some point in probably the next 30 days. I'm not exactly sure, but it's under new management, so that should be interesting. So I have gone to school specializing in human sexuality, and with a public health background, I'm a health educator. I want to encourage people to be healthy, to be responsible for themselves, to have the education to make smart choices with whatever you're doing in your life. And of course, I know some people in this town who are like, oh yeah, I like sex. I've had a bunch of that, I want to teach about it. And it's like, okay, I believe there's a lot of value in recreational research, so to speak. But I also think it's really important to leave your personal, this one time at band camp kind of moments, you know what I mean? And come from empirical research and come from an educational behavior change model. So that's kind of where I come from. And I go to conferences. There's a bunch of us sex nerds all over the country. And we meet up and share research and encourage each other because, believe it or not, there's a lot of people that think that this doesn't exist and that this isn't important. And, excuse me, how did we all get here?
So there's actually three things that I want to talk to you about with that. And the first being that, so you master's and doctorate, which means a lot of time spent in school.
Yes.
Which sounds like a lot of time to learn about, let's just say, tab A going into slot B.
Yes.
What are you learning? What are you learning and what are you teaching beyond just the basic act of what it is?
Well, the thing is music, if you listen to most songs on the radio, they've done a good job of telling us about what it is. I joke with my students, I'm like, if you don't think this is important, just turn on the radio. I mean, almost every song is about having sex or wanting it or having your heart broken, right? It's just, that's 90% of music. But the thing is, we live in a culture that has a lot of judgments about sexuality in terms of what we should do, what's okay, what's right, and what's wrong. And I'm doing little quotation marks here you can't quite see. But we still judge each other. And often it's based upon very different cultural values. I mean, we live in Las Vegas. This is an incredibly diverse place with people from all over the world. So I teach my students to go, hey, guess what? Not everybody's like you. And then I teach them about all the other fun gray areas that people don't think about. And also the influences. Like I said, we have music, we have the media. The internet has opened up a lot of doors because, I mean, when you were a kid, you couldn't just like Google stuff, you know? Like now...
Not that I didn't want to.
Well, of course. I mean, if it had been available. Exist. But like, I mean, I remember when the internet started and I remember when chat rooms started and it was like all of a sudden people were learning about things in a totally different way. And you can get a lot of misinformation on the internet or from your friends or from other various sources.
And we'll come back to misinformation. But you mentioned something right there that there's a difference between personal experience and actually following empirical research. And what does it mean to follow like the research? Give us an example of that.
When you look at rates of condom use, for example, there's a wonderful study that just came out, for example. We think that kids are, doing it and getting pregnant and getting STIs all over the place all the time. And there was a report that just came out like a week ago from the Guttmacher that said that teen pregnancy rates are down 51% from where they were in the 90s. So, we look around Las Vegas and we go, oh, there's a lot of pregnant teenagers still. And we have an incredibly high teen pregnancy rate. You go to the high schools and you see the girls, and we have daycare at a handful of the high schools in Las Vegas. But when you look at nationally speaking, that's when you go, oh, things are actually like reducing and there are more people. It's not that the research was funny because it didn't say that people are having less sex. It said that they're having less risky sex. And so that's also important because we still live in a state that teaches abstinence only education. So don't do it. Don't think about it. Don't even, it's a dirty, nasty, disgusting thing that you save for someone you love.
Now.
And marry. Marriage is very important. And the thing is in Las Vegas, we also don't have gay marriage. So if you like someone of the same sex, good luck to you because you're never, ever going to be able to have sex because you legally can't get married.
Now, let me bring in the third question that I wanted to bring in. It's not really a question. It's a word. Slut.
I've participated in the Las Vegas Slut Walk.
Yes, you have.
I think that the word slut is a very powerful, powerful word. And I still call my friends on it when they say it. And for example, what is a slut by definition, And some people say, well, a slut's just someone that won't sleep with you. They sleep with all your friends and they won't sleep with you. But is there a number? And I ask my students this. I go, how many people do you have to have sex with to be a slut? And it's amazing the numbers they throw out at me. They're like, 10. If you've had sex with more than 10 people, you're for sure a slut. And then I go, okay, well, let's break this down. If the average person starts having sex around 15 or 16 years old, is it not necessarily abnormal for them to be in a sexual relationship after 6 months or so? Well, let's say that relationship ends and you start a new relationship and maybe after a period of time you become sexual with them. So you could be averaging 2 sex partners a year and still be having serial monogamous relationships. So by the time you're 30, if you've had sex with 2 people a year, congratulations. Like you've had sex with 30 people. It can sneak up on you really quickly. But do we have a counter on our arm that like ticks off every time we have sex with a new partner? No. Okay. what you do with your body is your business. Now, the thing is often people will say a slut is someone who is dirty, right? Who is promiscuous, which is another word that is really something that should only be done by self-definition, because to have multiple sex partners, what does that mean? At the same time? Or like in a lifetime? Like I'm confused. So the definitions that we think of as a culture don't actually apply to reality, because your idea of what a slut is different than their idea of what a slut is, and is different of my idea of a slut.
And this is why I think what you do is so important, is people will come up with terms and ideas. And I think one of the worst things that we do in all aspects of our life is we will attach a term to something quickly without giving it any other forethought, but we will label it something. And as soon as it's got that label on it, we have also decided whether that is good or bad, and we moved it into that box, and it stays there. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you're able to do, especially in teaching, is you're able to tell somebody who maybe for different various reasons, they believe that they're bad, or they believe that they're dirty, or they have been shamed into believing something. And I know that this is true, especially of people who are victims of sexual assault, mm-hmm. where they will feel very, very unclean mm-hmm. because of their past.
And then they blame themselves. That's also very common, where they're like, well, I must have done something. This is my fault, you know? Which is not. If you've been sexually assaulted, it's not your fault.
And I think that's something that more people need to hear, not just in the sexual arena, but that is really, really big, where we are so quick to label somebody. Mm-hmm. And once we've given them a label, that label tends to stick in our head, mm-hmm. whether it's fair or not, whether it's deserved or not.
Yeah. Well, and then the person who's been labeled will sometimes then own it. You know, it's like that... stigmatizing themselves. They go, well, if everybody thinks I'm a slut, I might as well act like one. And then they might start acting in more reckless behavior because they already feel like they can't go backwards from already being labeled like that. And we see that a lot in younger adults. In high school, a lot of these girls, you know, they have that one boyfriend who shares with everybody what happened, and all of a sudden the entire school is bullying her. I mean, sexually harassing her. And I mean, some girls have to leave the high school. Some girls, sadly, end up killing themselves. I mean, we see this more and more, that using words like slut or easy or loose or whatever, you know, can literally hurt people into them hurting themselves. And that's a serious problem. But even as adults, I mean, I'm a sexologist. Do you know what people assume about me on a daily basis? I mean,
that somebody's handing out a card about you on the boulevard?
Yeah, I do not have hooker trading cards on Las Vegas Boulevard. That would be a very interesting marketing tool. But no, I have not done that. And I'm not a sex worker. You know, I talk about sex. I have friends who are sex workers, but I've never sold myself. I believe that education is power. I love this because I normalize it, just like what you said. Someone who maybe was labeled can go, wait, I'm okay. I'm not dirty and disgusting. Maybe I should respect this beautiful body that I have, and maybe I should find other people who respect me. And like, I had a student just this week who wrote me a letter saying, you know, taking your class helped me forgive myself because I felt like there was something wrong with my body. I thought I was ugly, or there was something wrong with me, and I realized that there's nothing wrong, and I should love myself, and that, you know, I've been spending all this time hating myself when I could have been just appreciating what I have.
Now, you were talking a lot from the female perspective, and I want to bring this into it, and then we're going to talk about how you kind of achieved to get where you are. But guys who are sexually harassed or discriminated against for their relationships. Mm-hmm. It's a minority, but it happens as well. It's
true. And it's interesting the words we use, because you very rarely will hear a man called a slut. And if he is called a slut, he's a man slut. But the socially acceptable equivalent of a man slut is a playa, right? A hustler. I'm a stud, right? Because as a society, we have a sexual double standard where we expect women to be these clean, pure, little innocent angels.
But there have also been men who have been severely harassed.
Of course, because they have friendly penises, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, but as a culture, we put a lot of shame on that. Or we get people like Tiger Woods, who goes off and has an assortment of affairs, and then the only way that he can try to justify his actions as a sexual being is by saying, oh, I have a sex addiction. You know, I have no control over this. It's like, sure.
Yeah, and that one becomes, and we're going to have Will join us at the bottom of the hour, so we're going to be talking about that as well and about addiction. But now, so you made this choice. You totally went off on a totally different tangent as far as education into a very, very minor field. And before anybody really jumps on a negative bandwagon and goes, oh, well, I could have learned that. Anybody can learn anything, but a lot of people choose not to. It's not like you came from a family of sex doctors.
No.
You know, it's not like you came from a background any different than anyone else. What made you take this different path?
Well, like you said, the whole, like, I'm in a specialized field. And I actually had someone, when I was applying for my master's degree, she told me, don't do that. Like, why would you go and want to specialize in sex? You will never work, is what she told me. And I kind of so want to send her an email one of these days and be like, so, look what I do now. But the reason I got into this, it started in high school, really. I was finding that my friends were starting to learn about themselves and their bodies and the people that they were with and around bodies. And they didn't have anybody to talk to. And so girls talk. I mean, women talk too. But it's one of those learning experiences from talking to your peers. And so my friends were asking me all these questions. And I would have to go ask my parents or look it up. And I kind of became the sex educator in high school. And people felt safe talking to me. That's kind of one of my magic powers. People feel very disarmed and just share their deepest, darkest secrets with me. And I've had that since I was in high school. So I realized once I became a sexual being, I'm like, why aren't we talking about this? Like, this isn't that big of a deal. This is amazing. This is where we all come from. You know, what's the big deal? Like, Disney's hyped it up for me for so long, right? I wanted Prince Charming to come and kiss me and, you know, all sorts of other things. Why aren't we talking about this? And so I started researching. When I'd see, like, TLC did a bunch of specials for a while on sexuality, or HBO has been a great educator for me. And I would go and I'd, like, research who these people were and find out what schools they'd gone to and how they did their research and what kind of backgrounds they had. So I knew by the time I graduated from high school that I wanted to go and be either a sex therapist or a sex counselor or educator or something, because it was already happening for me. So I started and I got my counseling degree.
How many friends and family members, I won't say turned their back on you when you kind of made that leap, but did you have a negative backlash or
None.
did you expect one?
Very few people. I think at the time, my boyfriend at the time's mother, she's kind of a powerful woman in town. And I think she was kind of like, you want to do what? And my boyfriend at the time was a little uncomfortable with it, especially with me working at the sex museum. He's like, oh my God, I don't know what kind of people you're going to be around. I don't know what you're going to do. And I'm like, I'm going to be giving tours at a museum with my clothes on. Like, what are you so worried about? So that was probably the only pushback. My parents have been super, super proud of me. My mom loves telling people what I do. She gets like a kick out of shocking people. She's in the UNLV band, and like she's like, oh yeah, my daughter teaches here, and they're like, oh, what does she teach? She's like, human sexuality, and they're like, oh, it's awesome. So I've gotten very lucky because my family supported me. Even my like super religious family that lives in like the middle of backwoods in Alabama is like, yeah. Which
you may have just started a fight, and
I'm just saying that's where they live. She lives in her double wide in Alabama.
Alabamian right here.
There you go. I'm just speaking the truth.
It's one of the states there's not much to do there. So,
No.
but they do have sex. So
They do.
It's like one of the pastimes of
It's
Alabama.
free. It's a good time. So
It's like, what are we gonna do? I don't know. Let's have some more sex. Okay.
Yeah, pumpkin. This is awesome. It's great. So, and it's been amazing because even UNLV's been very accepting of me. I mean, as I was graduating with my master's, they're like, so our sex educator is retiring. Do you want the job? And I'm like, yes. Like, I didn't even need to really think about it. And they encourage me. They buy me condoms to give out to my students and little anatomy models. And I really haven't lost anybody in my life for it. I've definitely had people who have made a lot of assumptions about me and my behaviors and what I do, which mostly is not true. And what is true is my business. And so it's definitely been interesting, and I wish somebody had told me that getting into this, that me presenting myself as a sex educator was going to people were going to look at me very differently for the rest of my life.
And when Will comes on, we're going to be talking about that. And I'm just going to touch on one thing really briefly, because this is going to bring us into the next part of everything, and that's that you have hobbies that have nothing to do with sex, really.
Mm-hmm.
And ukulele player,
yes,
singer. You've also participated in a lot of burlesque shows, a lot of variety shows.
Yep.
You've been a big supporter of different shows here in town as well.
Yes, definitely. Because growing up in Vegas, I've been here almost 14 years now, and I've watched the art community here kind of grow, and the performer community, the open mic community. It's kind of the same people who've been floating around, and it's grown and it's gotten stronger, and I love seeing that. And I've been a musician in Vegas since before I was a sex educator, and it's fun to play this kind of professor by day, musician by night thing. But I love it. And that's how I met you.
Oh, yeah.
It's through the variety scene and the performer scene. We have good people in this town. So I believe that for me, I need to have music in my life. I need to have poetry and dance and all this to keep me balanced. It's all part of the different hats I wear, because I'm not always Dr. Amanda.
And speaking of performers, variety performers, and especially speaking about great people, sitting next to you, you just had the opportunity to meet them. I've got Michael Saab and Irene Fong sitting here with me, who are the Modern Gypsies.
Hey, what's up?
Hi.
Guys, it is phenomenal to see you. Michael, you started in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yep, that's right, man.
And what did you start off doing?
Okay, let's see. Where do we start?
And don't use names yet.
Okay, you got it. The first thing we did was I learned how to play drums, and we inspired great drum circles in the parks. And I think from there I went to Germany and goofed around in Germany, biked around the country, met some fire performers, learned how to blow fire, and brought that back to Alabama to my drum circle. And then it became a show. You have drums and fire, and it's like, oh, wow, we have this weird ritual thing going on. And people started watching us and paying more attention. So that's how it all started.
Now, we're going to talk about our intermarriage really quickly, because the Modern Gypsies, you originally had a performing partner in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Who was it?
Tom Britton himself.
And what did you and Tom do?
Okay, Tom and I, we created the company, the Modern Gypsies. Tom is a very interesting guy. At the time when he met me, I was running around barefoot, blowing fire at drum circles, and Tom was making balloon animals and juggling. So we came together, and he was such a great talker. And together we formed this company called the Modern Gypsies Drums, Fire, and Dance, which quickly became Modern Gypsies Circus Sideshow. I don't know how Tom did it to us, but he got
He's
us
convincing.
He got us lying on bed of nails, and we added in the straitjacket escape, and just became a full-fledged freak show before we knew it.
And the reason that I bring him up, of course, is eventually you two kind of went your separate ways. Tom went down to New Orleans.
That's right.
Him and I formed the Flying Cat, and we toured colleges together for many, many years.
Yeah.
A very, very dynamic performer and an amazing, amazing director.
It's great.
I mean, yeah, he was. I could go. Both of us, I'm sure, could go on and on with stories of
True talent. He has true talent. Born with it.
In so many ways, probably so much more natural than anything else.
Absolutely.
But then you grew and expanded. You turned the Modern Gypsies into something that, for lack of a better word, is more on the modern gypsy side. I mean, colorful, flair, decorative, beautiful. Everything you think of when that word gypsy comes into play. Tell us about what you're doing.
Well, once when Tom and I split, I fell away from Circus Sideshow. It wasn't quite as natural to me as it was to Tom. And my flair was more for building props and creating fantasies. I mean, that was a great marriage of the two of us, because he was so steeped in the lore and the ancient art forms, and I wanted to push things to evolve things to the next level and do more things with costume and interpretive dance and with the weird ritual fire breathing stuff that I had started off with. So I just went back to building costumes and really trying to evolve entertainment and visual entertainment to whatever's coming next. So
Tell me about
what's your question?
tell me about 3 of the characters just for yourself.
Yeah.
That you've created. Just tell me like their names and just describe the character and the look. And of course, the website is
It's modern-gypsies.com. www.modern-gypsies.com.
And I mean, I'm going to have them describe some of these things, but you really do need to go on the website. You need to see these visuals to really understand it. But just pick like three of your favorite characters.
Okay, probably one that we're most known for is an act we call Bubble Boy, where a character dressed in a spandex bodysuit with he's faceless. He has a white mask on, and most of our acts are faceless. You wouldn't know that it was us or anyone else, because we really try to create the illusion, and dehumanize it. And this guy, he blows up a big 10-foot balloon, gets inside of it, and then bounces around. It's very strange and unique. At the end of it, there's confetti inside of a big giant human snow globe, and it bursts, and the confetti flies out everywhere.
Now, hold on a second, because I'm going to start a little bit of a fight. And remember, try and keep the language as best as you can. Amanda, have you seen an act like Bubble Boy anywhere here in town?
Yes, I have.
Where?
2 places. I do believe at Absinthe.
Let's talk about it being at Absinthe. Michael?
Dude, are we really going to...
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, well, I've been performing now for 20 years, so... rather than just slinging mud, I'm just going to say evolution, things inspire other people to do things. And, nothing's going to stay unique forever. That's everything that is where we've become has been on the backs of other people. My whole intention is just to keep pushing things forward. If I inspire or if people inspire me, that's wonderful. And I'll just keep on rocking.
There's actually a reason that I'm prodding you towards this, though.
Okay.
And that is that you've taught a lot of people a lot of stuff. You've always been a very, very giving performer and artist.
Sometimes to my default, yeah.
But I mean, you've never shied away from that.
I think I just like to talk. I'm a real people person, so that's one of my biggest faults, I guess. But at the same time, whatever.
But then again, as many times as you'll teach somebody something and they'll take it over to another event, how many times has that personal connection and that desire to talk and share led you to other gigs, though?
Yeah, I think it comes hand in hand for sure. Yeah, being a people person has helped me in my career, and it's also let the cat right out of the bag. Yeah.
So let's talk about 2 other acts.
Okay, another really awesome act that comes to mind is one of our most recent, with my beautiful girlfriend Irene Fong right here. We and without giving away the cat, here we are. We've really gotten into some cool aerial things. We put her in a harness. We dress her like a golden phoenix and hang her from the ceiling, and she plays violin. This beautiful violin that's got LED lights in it, and she plays it and flies around the room, hangs upside down, plays it over an audience and a crowd. It's just a beautiful, ethereal visual effect. And it all comes from just trying to do things. My whole shtick is just to do things that people haven't seen before. So she had a dream. She was like, Michael, I'm going to have this dream. You're going to put wings on me, and I'm going to pull up my violin. I'm just going to be lifted into the air. And so
I remember this.
Of course, yeah. So we got to do that.
Now, when you say that you design costumes,
right?
You're not going to Joanne Fabric, picking up 10 yards.
No, it starts.
What are you doing?
Well, it starts with a piece of paper, and then a drawing, and then we just lots of glue and patience and cutting up different materials and reappropriating things that we find at Home Depot or Target or Walmart and
but you've
figuring
also
it
gone
out.
overseas.
Yeah, we go overseas. It also comes from years of experience of being inspired by other costumers that are out there that are making really elaborate structural things that somehow work. And we've designed some amazing wings and huge giant backpack flowers and brought some really beautiful concepts from our imagination to life.
You're also able to, and I'm not sure if you still do this act. It is one of my favorites, and it's so rare that I've ever seen it done well, and that's black art.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's difficult. It just takes so much tech. It's not as marketable as some of the other things that don't require the room to be completely blacked out. But yeah, it's a cool one. We use UV light.
Yeah, it's a beautiful act. And once again, modern-gypsies.com. You can see a lot of this on there. I mean, now, when you're doing acts in major clubs, you've done stuff for fashion shows, you've really gone all around the world with some of this.
Yeah, absolutely. China, we did stuff in Germany. We had a little section where we did things in Africa and Kenya. That was a lot of fun. That was more of a teaching and a sharing social work group. Where else have we been? I don't know.
We were in Turkey.
Yeah.
We were in Cyprus recently.
Cyprus. All over the world. It's been fun.
Now, there is different moments in a career that you're building where you are presented with an opportunity, and that opportunity has come because you've worked really, really hard, and people call it luck. And I've always believed that luck is a skill, because you've never just had somebody knock on your door and go, hey, I'm looking for somebody who will design this amazing thing. You know, you've gotten gigs because you're out there, because you're working, because you're developing all of these things.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, Michael, you got really, really lucky once, and she's sitting next to you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we could talk about how beautiful she is. We could talk about how talented she is. We could talk for hours just about her.
Right.
But let me ask this. Let me take the personal side of it out. What do you guys bring together on stage with each other? Because there's a lot.
I'll start it. And I just want to say it's not really about on stage for us anymore, because it's really the pre-production. Our own stage show has become, we're like the mother and father of Modern Gypsies, and we're so proud of our children. We put costumes together and put our people out there performing these concepts that we've developed. We don't have to be on stage. We can be on stage by being off stage, looking at the stage that we created. But what we've brought together is it's just, you know, when she found me, I was still, you know, wet behind the ears. I was still duct taping things together. She is a classically trained violinist from the age of 4, and she just brought in a beautiful, classy, refined. She became my muse, and she just took it up to a much classier and elegant and expensive level. Wouldn't you say so, dear? What do you think?
I think that our collaboration is great because we're able to share our ideas, and I think we really feed off of each other creatively. You know, when you completely understand a person and you can almost guess what they might say, and then you combine your thoughts and creative concepts, it becomes this very exciting and fun process where one person says, oh, you know, you might be just eating lunch or something very normal, going to the store, you think, hey, I had this thought. I thought we might do this crazy creative thing. And the other person says, oh, yeah, and then we can do this on top of it. And the first person says, that's right, and then we can do this amazing other creative, crazy thing as well while it's all going on at the same time. And it's just, you know, the energy that we bring together, I think, is very important and very special.
And you guys use the word elegant. And I forgot to use that adjective. Because a lot of times when you're talking about variety artists, you tend to think of cut corners. You tend to think of something that may not be polished from beginning to end. But, for example, you're here in Vegas because you're doing a major corporate event at the Bellagio.
That's right. Yeah.
And, I mean, the Bellagio, I think the word elegant would be the base word to describe that building. But you wouldn't get hired for these kind of gigs if there wasn't an elegance to what you do. But elegance doesn't always mean formal. Mm-hmm. How would you define elegance?
Oh, man. I'd say, you know, if you can just not cut any corners, see your vision through as to its fullest extent to your capabilities, just not to sacrifice or be satisfied with anything less than what you can is the very best that you can do.
Somebody once told me that elegance is the least amount of steps from where you are to exactly where you want to be. And
that's very well put.
And I liked that definition. And when you look at the stuff that you guys put out there, you know, I mean, you're doing events that'll go for hours, sometimes with different variety acts, all these different visual stimuli. that's ongoing throughout an event. How do you wrangle all of that together without killing somebody or yourselves? Just dealing with the amount of talent and the people and the costumes.
I guess it just comes from experience. We've fallen down so many times that we've hopefully learned from our mistakes, and just all about experience, and also not understaffing yourself. You want to try to always put your best foot forward and do as much as you can, but there's a line where if you don't have the technical support behind you, then maybe you shouldn't attempt to do that giant fire-breathing dragon that flies across the building. You're going to have your 10 technicians behind you to make sure nothing gets broken or nobody gets hurt.
And I believe, do we have Will ready to go? Will, you with us?
I am here. How are you today,
Perfect.
sir?
Will, thank you so much for joining us. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us. Will is a therapist. His website is Get Help New Orleans. Or just Help New Orleans. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, helpneworleans.com. And now Will actually worked with Tom as well in New Orleans, doing a lot of the different stuff. And also, Amanda, we're going to talk about this with you as well. Will's actually really, really well known in the world of addiction and addiction recovery. Will, I'm just going to kind of let you take over for a few minutes because I'm sure you've got questions in both directions.
Yeah, actually, I want to start out with Amanda, and just I was reading that you were really familiar with Terry Real's relational life therapy. Is that correct?
I've read some of that. Yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit for our audience? Because I think that's an important therapeutic technique, and also just how you think that helps couples with their sex life. Although that may be a very long answer, you probably condense it a little bit.
Here's the thing is I feel like we live in a world of relationships, and I mean, from like family systems model and that kind of stuff, you have to acknowledge the fact that we come from kind of ecosystems, right? We're influenced by our relationships with our family and relationships with our partners. And I think when you can identify those aspects and work within that structure, you're going to be better at changing your beliefs or getting your goals or getting to where you need to be without thinking that this is all me and I am the only person who is involved in this world. We have to acknowledge the fact that we are part of an ecosystem. That's basically the best way to say it. And if you change one part of that ecosystem, everything changes. And I mean, even in environmental health, I mean, we see that where, we have one type of fish that, there's too many of them. So we bring in a different type of fish and then that fish ends up taking over the entire pond, so we have to be very gentle with our ecosystems. And I think when you use that kind of method in talking about sex and relationships, it allows people to kind of look at their place, acknowledge maybe their fears about how they influence their relationships around them, because a lot of people are afraid to live life to the fullest because they're afraid that they're going to hurt people or that they're going to be judged or, XYZ, right? People have all sorts of reasons why they don't live to their optimal point. And it's been really, I don't know, I love seeing people finally acknowledging the fact that like, hey, this is who I am. I need to live in integrity. And for me to live in integrity, I am going to share with my community, whatever that is, if it's, your best friend or your parents or your church or whatever, whatever works for people, for them to be their, live in integrity with themselves. And I do most of that through education. I just go, hey, guess what? You're not alone. You are, there are other people like you. And even if you are into something that you might think is, quote unquote weird, I bet you there's a website based around it. I bet you'll find your people. And luckily the internet has allowed people to go and find their people a little bit better. So, I just encourage people to stop thinking the worst, because as humans, we automatically assume that if we go and tell somebody something they don't want to hear, that they're going to immediately leave us and stomp out of the room. And most times it's an opportunity to grow, and actually maybe get your relationship even closer through sharing of your insecurities or your fears or your desires, instead of living a life for somebody else and not sharing your true self and feelings.
Okay. And what do you, in your opinion, what do you think is the most damaging thing you kind of see over and over again that husbands and wives do to each other that really seems to affect their sex life?
They don't talk. They don't talk. They don't communicate. We live in a world of assumptions, and it's like, well, he should know that this is what I want, and she should know that that's not what I like. And it's like, well, is your partner psychic? Because, that's not very common. And if you did have a psychic partner, good for you. I mean, that sounds like a whole different story. But we assume that people know what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and most of the time they don't, because they don't hear what's happening in your inside voice. And we need to share, we need to talk, and we need to say, hey, how do you feel about this? Or, what I'd really like to try, or I've always wondered if, opening up the door to actually sharing, or going, I would really enjoy if we could maybe change this part of our relationship, and coming at it instead of, you should change this and you should do that, which then causes that defensiveness. Right? So then, I have couples who will come talk to me and they'll be like, well, she always says that this is what I always do. And I'm like, okay, always is a big word and it lasts a very long time. Like the shoulds, when people put shoulds on each other and they don't actually talk about their wants and how to have a relationship that works for them instead of a relationship they think they should have. I think that's one of the biggest problems, because we live in a world where people think that they should be a certain type of thing, when really, when you look at it, you should do whatever makes you happy and allows you to feel an integrity with yourself and with your partnerships. Like that's where I come from.
Yeah, and I agree with you. A lot of times I find that it's okay for one partner to say no, but when they start saying no by shaming the other person, then everything seems to go downhill from there.
Yes.
And there's a lot that goes on in that process. Well, when do you think that there's this word deviant that comes out all the time, or problematic? When do you think that sexual behavior or types of sexual behavior become problematic? Well, where's the line for you?
I mean, if you look at the definitions of paraphilias and stuff, it really comes into, is there any sort of distress associated with that behavior? So does the person feel bad about what they want? Or do they have to, steal or hurt other people to get what they want? Do they need it? Has it become such a big part of their life that they cannot function without that behavior? And then also, is somebody else getting hurt? Is there a victim in this? Is this hurting more than just the person who's dealing with the issue? And even if it is just hurting the person who's dealing with the issue, you should deal with it. With any addiction thing, if this is causing somebody to not be able to get out of their house, or to not be able to function normally and hold a job and to shower and eat regularly, they're hurting and they need help. And sometimes that help is just them going to find out that they're okay, that there are other people like them, and that maybe that shame and guilt that they keep inside that maybe causes so much of that disturbance, that uncomfortable feeling, maybe they can let go of that and maybe feel better about it, and maybe be able to accept themselves more and get out of that discomfort. Or maybe it is a compulsive or an obsessive behavior that does need some sort of behavior management.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece too, is to start wondering. There's gratifying yourself, and there's doing what you want, and then there's the other piece where you still have empathy for those around you. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, as you kind of mentioned earlier, I think there's a piece to this puzzle where people think they're getting hurt by other people's sexual behavior, and they're not, because they're not even really involved in that sexual behavior at all. And that we're treading on that kind of gay rights issue.
Well, I mean, Lawrence versus Texas in 2003 basically was one of those nice ones that the Supreme Court said, hey, what you're doing in the privacy of your bedroom is your business. And I think that's powerful, and I think that's something that people forget about in terms of hey, guess what's on the books, Because, like you said, what people do in the privacy of their bedrooms is their business. And sometimes it is the most conservative of people that are doing the freakiest stuff at home. So cheers to them. And as long as they're doing it with someone who consents to whatever it is, and nobody's getting hurt without wanting it, then cheers to them. That's kind of how I feel.
Living near Bourbon Street, I know that some of the most conservative people are not doing it just in their home. and there are times where I wish that they would. Cheers to them, but sometimes what I see hurts me, and
but I believe in your right to not have to see that. And I think that there is an element where sometimes, hey, keep it behind closed doors. I don't think that everybody needs to have everything in their face, because some people don't want to or don't need to see it, or maybe it'll trigger them from another experience they've had on Bourbon Street.
Exactly. I want to go back kind of. You said that you realized that at some point that this was going to change how people looked at you. Was that a gradual process? Because I find almost all therapists go through this, and I think you probably to a greater extent, where it's going to change the relationships in your life. It's going to change how people view you. Doctors go through this as well. Was that a gradual process for you or an immediate process for you, kind of like all of a sudden?
It was immediate. It was weird because all of a sudden I became Dr. Amanda, and then everyone's like, oh, and the assumptions, and just getting used to hearing Dr. Amanda Morgan took me, months, to where it wasn't like, wait, who are you talking about? And I've gotten used to it now. And kind of understanding that role, but I also kind of manage that part of my life by kind of wearing metaphorical hats. Okay, so it's like I have different characters I play, and I think like a lot of therapists do. You deal with all this heavy stuff at your job, and then you have to kind of leave it there and go home and be yourself, right? So I definitely have had to work on that, but I also am very careful about who I tell what I do, because sometimes I'm in social situations where I'm with someone who I don't know anything about them, and they want to know about me, and I'll be like, meh, I'm a health educator. And they assume that I teach nutrition, or I'm talking about, childhood obesity or something. And they're not so interested in that. But the moment I say, oh, I'm a sex educator, oh, well, then can I have a private sex education lesson? That kind of stuff comes out. And I know like my therapist friends also have that, where all of a sudden people find out you're a therapist and their entire life story comes out while you're, ordering your drink at Starbucks. And so I think that there is, as a helper, we are put in these positions where we do love to help. I'm in this because I love people and I want people to be happier and healthier. But sometimes there's moments where people overshare and put themselves completely out on the line just because maybe you're the first person they've ever been able to ask this question to,
Yeah, sometimes it's really uncomfortable because you can't give them the answer at the moment because it's inappropriate to dig into their world, and you have to kind of sidestep, and it can become uncomfortable at times. I want to move over to the Modern Gypsies for a minute. Can you guys tell me kind of what has been the best part, besides working together, what has been the best part of your career, if you could?
Oh, okay. Just such an interesting question. Just the whole growing experience of doing what we do for a living and being able to wake up and say, oh, man, I just love this job. This is so cool. I can't believe this is what we get to do, to support ourselves. Traveling the world has been a really great blessing. And I think just seeing the vision come from our imagination, and then that moment where you see it on stage and all that hard work pays off, and it's like seeing the birth of one of your children. That's really a satisfying part of the career.
And did the vision always come so easily, or was it kind of frustrating at first?
The frustrating part, I think creativity, for me, I've always been a dreamer my whole life. So being able to daydream and just see things in my mind or have very vivid imagination, that's come really easy to me. Figuring out how to get it from my mind onto the real plane, that's the hard part. So that's the last 20 years has been a great I've learned so much about fabrication and what different types of glue or high density foam or wire and combinations of all the parts of pieces to make something happen and make it lightweight and then make it able to be broken down and put into a trunk and flown around the world and then reassembled. That's the real learning experience through my career.
And so it took you a while to go from to be able to create. You know, I looked at your website and have seen some of your stuff. It took a while, I guess, to create some of these really amazing things that you guys have created. I'm sure some of those visions you had very early on, and they were pretty tough to kind of to pull in. Did you find yourself kind of at first just doing the show you could do instead of the show you really wanted to put on?
It's all, you know, for me, when I was 21 and we created that Fire Phoenix costume from a bed sheet and some spray paint in the backyard, I thought that was the end of the end game. You know, I thought that was it. And then you know, later on my eyes opened a little bit more, and I thought, oh, and I realized I could do more. And then that became my new end game. And now today we're looking at our stuff, and today I feel like this is the new end game. And I think that it's just your perception of where you are is based on what you've gotten up to so far. So I'm hoping that, you know, in the next 20 years we'll come that much more far ahead, and I'll look back on today and just think, wow, I was really dumb. I had no idea what I was doing. And look how far we've taken it. So
That's also the
that's
journey.
awesome. Ever been a moment you wanted to quit?
Was there a moment I wanted to quit? No, not really. I mean, it's it's had its ups and downs, but I don't think I can do anything else. If I did quit, there's creativity coming out of us, and we'd figure out a way for it to manifest in some way or another. I don't think I have a choice in the matter. We'd find some wire on the ground and create and make it into something, you know.
Well, what were the downs?
What's that?
What were the downs?
Downs. Some of the downs, I think, you know, we've done a lot of bar mitzvahs. We've done a lot of Sweet 16s, and thank you, moms and dads, for hiring us. But that wasn't exactly in my mind what I thought we were going to be doing creatively for a living. You know, I have dreams of, you know, taking it around the world and changing the world, and I didn't really think it was going to be one bar mitzvah at a time. So just realizing, you know, like, okay, this is a freelance career and we're doing it on this level. I wish I was so much further, but we're here. And so those realization moments are like kind of a bummer. But, you know, things happen and you pull yourself ahead and you just keep doing it. It's not really about the end goal. It's about whether or not you're enjoying it along the way.
As long as we're talking about relationships, what are the things you guys say to each other that kind of pull you guys through in those moments, or just in general that kind of inspire each other? Like, what does she say to you that really inspires you?
Irene, what do you say to me that really inspires me?
I think sometimes I say, everything's going to be great. Don't worry. We're going to get through this. Because I think a big part of working together on this project of Modern Gypsies, which is also our business and our life, is, you know, it's an entrepreneurial effort. So essentially we're running an entrepreneurial business together. And, you know, all the ups and downs that come with that are a part of our daily work.
Our lives,
you know?
yeah.
Guys, we're down.
Yeah.
We've got to wrap up. There's another show about to come in. This one's been a blast for me. We've had just amazing, amazing people, and I'm thankful for everybody coming in. Now, Amanda, is there a website that people can use to follow you?
Yes.
What is it?
AskDrAmanda.com. I'm also on Facebook. I am also a musician, the Miss Amanda Morgan. You can find my music stuff. I'll be performing on May 20th at the OK Almost Click Variety Show at the Inspire Theater.
AskDrAmanda.com.
AskDrAmanda.com.
Go and check it out. And, of course, modern-gypsies.com. Check it out. You can find Mike and Irene on there. They are absolutely phenomenal. Michael is just brilliant. Irene has taken them to a whole nother level. It's always, always a blast to have them in town. Of course, VegasHypnosisShow.com. Email me anytime at info@VegasHypnosisShow.com. Let me know what you want to hear on the show. Will, thank you so much for joining us. HelpNewOrleans.com for some more background, some more information, some ideas to move your life forward. Thank you for joining us on Live Unleashed. Good night.